Hello everyone. Thanks for watching this video. This is some sample examples for the AP Computer Science questions. This is the question for the first sheet with question number 28 to 33. The question 34 to 40, I think they have involved a lot of definition. So in this series of videos, it will be ignored here. First, let's take a look around of question 28. Now consider the following random list class. This is a Java random list class which is called random list. It has a private integer array which is called mylist, and also it has some constructor. The constructor only assign the mylist with the results returned by calling the method of a getList. And immediately following by this constructor, there are two methods. One, getList, the other, printList. And the printList is ignored by mentioning just the brief functions of it. Now, let's take a look around for this method. Okay, the method is called getList, and what it does is read random integers from 0 to 100 inclusively into array list. But on the other hand, first we have to do the following things. We have to make sure the number of integers that we need to receive from the input typed by the user, and then we will read it gradually. We will generate it gradually. So the basic step is like first it used the system that out of the print line method to ask the user how many integers, and then used the read integer methods belong to the IO class to read it from the user's input and stored it inside of integer which is called the list length, which actually fix the length of the array we want to generate some random number. So the next line is declarations of integer array with name list and with the length list length we just received. Then following is a simple for loop. It goes from index I equals to 0 to I less than list length and generate so many random variables inside. But this is a code to add integer to list, and it will happen instead of our next choice of the choices of our questions. So let's take the next slide. The next slide asks you which represents the correct code to add integer to list. So if you want to generate, remember what does this random number generate is some number that ranges between 0 to 100. And remember that when we use the random method by the math class, it will generate a number which is between 0 and at most 1, but it will not output 1. So basically, we need additional 1 if we want to generate a number. Random number ranges between 0 to 100. We have to add additional unit to the maxima numbers that we aim to generate. That means math.random should multiply 101, then convert it back to integer. Because if we cased it by the int braces, it will only round it down. So list I definitely should get some results that returned by the math.random times 101 cased it to integer. That will be any random number generated between 0 and 100. So the answer is A. Let's take a look around of question 29 and 30. Question 29 and 30 refer to method insert described here. The insert method has two string parameters and one integer parameter. The method returns the string obtained by inserting the second string in the first, starting at a position indicated by the integer parameter. So there are three different examples. If we type insert string 1, string 2, 0, it will return catxy. Why is that? Because it just inserted the string 2 starting from the first the 0 positions of the string 1. That means if string 2 is cat, then it will occupy the index 0, index 1, index 2. Then the original index 0 from string 1 will be shifted starting from index 3. So that becomes catxy. The next line is that if we inserted the string 2 to the index 1 position of the original string 1, then x will still keep at its original position, but then after x, cat will be inserted and y will be pushed to index 3. The third line, the example is that what if we insert it into the index 2? Then that will be easier because string 1 only occupied the index 1 and the index 0, so there will be some concatenation. That is xy followed by cat. So here is the header for method insert. There are two preconditions. There are precondition and post-condition. And precondition is that assume that the position should be between 0 and also string 1 length, and also the post-condition will return something. Now the public static string insert for this method is declared as follows: 3 parameters, because we have already seen example before. Now it's a 4-more definition: stream str1, stream str2, and also int position. Now let's take a look around of the next slide related to the question. So if a string 1 can be represented by a sequence of symbols a0, a1, a2 until an-1, and a string 2 can be represented by another sequence of symbols b0, b1, b2 until bn-1, which of the following is a correct replacement for something? That means if we want to insert the string 2 to a specific position inside of a string 1, then that means string 1 should stop at the index of a position -1, then followed by string 2. That is a string sequence starting from b0, b1, b2 until bn-1. Then later on, it will resume the original index of string 1 apos. So let's take a look around for the order 5 choices. Choice 1 is incorrect because apos is appears earlier than b0. That definitely does not make sense because b0 should occupy the position pos, not pos plus 1. So A does not work and B does not work, definitely. So C works, and apparently D does not make any sense. So now let's take a look around of choices C and E. Both of them, the first part of the A stream stopped at the index pos1, then followed by the B0. All of them look similar. But on the other hand, if you check up the last index of B, we know that string 2 stopped at index m-1, which means that it has length m. So C works, but choice E is stopped at pos-1. That means it assumes that the string B has length pos. That does not make any sense. So the choice is C. Okay. Continue for another series of questions. Question 30. This is about how we implement the insert function. Insert method. So method insert follows with the following: post condition returns something, and what is this something? Is as follows. This is a public method, static method, return a string. Its name is insert. It has 3 parameters. The first parameter is string with name str1. The second parameter is also string with the name str2. The third parameter is integer called pos. It only gives us 2 lines and also wants us to insert more code in between. So the first line is a declaration: string first and last. That means we have first string and we have last string according to the input. And also there are several more code. The third line we should return first plus str2 plus last. So if you read from the third line, I mean if you only read the first line, probably you get confused. Why do we have to declare two different streams instead of this method? Then you know from the third line. That means because we want to insert the string to inside of one middle index of string 1, that means string 1 should be partitioned, should be cut up into two strings. So the first part of string will be first, the second part of string 1 will be last. So now let's take a look around for the 5 choices. Which of the following is the correct replacement for that more code? Apparently it's just a practice about our impression of the method, especially the stream method. And in this question, it's about a substring. Okay, let's remember. Yeah, let's remember what we have learned from the stream class. We know that we can get some substring from the stream class as long as the variable belongs to type stream. So, substream has two kind of forms that you can input parameters inside of this method. First is that you clearly specify the starting index and also the ending index. The second possibility is that you only specify the starting index. And what will be the second parameter? That means it will capture the substring of the original string starting from this index until the last one. So just skip the last one. So you have these two kind of choices. Now let's take the 5 different choices. Choice A, you see, if you want to separate a stream into first and last, then there should be no overlapping. So choice A is not correct because if the first stop as POS and the last starting as POS, then these two characters, they overlap. So from the same philosophy, we also can just eliminate choice E. Now let's see choice B, C, and D. Okay, now this is a philosophy about how, because from question 29, we've already seen that usually the first part of string will starting with index POS -1. So from this example, we know that B should be the correct choices because it specifies the string of str1 from index 0 to POS -1. And choice C and choice D, the first part of the string, first is stopped with index POS +1 and also POS, so which is incorrect. So we know B is our choice. Okay, now let's take a look around for question 31 to 33. What is it about? It's about a programmer plans to write a program that simulates a small bingo game. Okay, everyone knows bingo, but the implement detail is that each player will receive a card, and they have 20 numbers, 0 to 90, and no duplicate. Someone, I mean, for each player, but there might be some duplications between different players. Right? Someone will call out a number one at a time, and each player will cross out a number on his card as it is called. The first player with all the number crossed out is the winner. So it's an easy game. How do we do the form? At least right now it suggests us that instead of the main method, we could declare the following statement. The first line of the statement is that bingo game B equals to new bingo game. This is a very intuitive declaration of a game, just constructor, but it does not specify any parameters. Now, once we construct this bingo game, I think it assumes that all the previously steps like choosing 20 numbers and choosing the values of 20 numbers between 0 to 90 will be implemented inside of this constructor. And later on, we will start the line b dot play bingo, which means that there should be some method called play bingo. And instead of this method play bingo, they will try to cross out the numbers that the caller is trying to read out loud, and also do some calculation, making sure that whether the 20 numbers of these players will be crossed off or not. Because I mean, by the definition, if someone whose 20 numbers, all the 20 numbers are crossed out, then he's the winner. So the play bingo should be implement such kind of functions that will return whether he's the winner or he claim that, oh, I win or not. So the bingo game classes will have several objects: a display, a caller, and a player group. The player group will have a list of players, and each player will have a bingo card. So this is it's a suggestion that we need to implement such 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Yeah, we need to implement 5 classes. First is a display. The second is a caller. The third is a play group. The fourth is a player. The fifth will be bingo card. Now, let's imagine what might be inserted inside of display. It might be just a list of how many cards that each player has right now, and how many crossed off marks that these players have. I guess that might be the way that we are going to implement this display. Okay, about the second caller. The caller, I think his duty is trying to generate numbers from 0 to 90 without a duplication. So I guess instead of caller, from our previous example, I think we know that how to generate a random number. So the caller should be able to generate some random number and without a replication between 0 to 90. Okay, the third class is called player group. That should be a group of the player that has been participating inside of this game right now. And of course, instead of player groups, they have a lot of players. And what is the implementation of the bingo game? We know that they might need to receive the number, the bingo card, because each player will have a bingo card. So which means that in the constructor of a player, there should be a initialization of an object called bingo card. And of course, the bingo card has 20 numbers ranging from 0 to 90. Okay, now once we get such a sketch or brief imaginations of what this implementation of the classes of this bingo game could be, let's see what kind of questions that we need to deal with for this exam. The bingo game class will have several objects: a display, a caller, and a play group. The play group will have a list of players, and each player will have a bingo card. Now, question 31. The relationship between the play group and player classes is an example of what? It's just a collection, right? And it's a collection, which means that there should be some relationship that connects the first class and also the second class. And of course, we know that there's a difference between player group and a player. So the first choice, an interface, is not right. And also the second choice is an encapsulation is also not right. The inheritance should not be right because there's not directly that obvious similarity between player group and player. We might have some like several specific player like skill players or VIP player or whatever, but player groups is a collection of players, so which means that it's a composition, so there's no inheritance between those two classes. And also we don't know what this choice E means. Independent classes, I don't know, and we don't know what it means, so that means composition is our answer. Okay, let's take a look around at the following question. Question 32. Which is a reasonable data structures for a bingo card object? Because that a bingo card has a 20 integers from 0 to 90 with no duplicates. There should also be mechanisms for crossing of numbers that are called and for detecting a winning card, i.e. the one where all the numbers have been crossed off. So let's see. There are three choices. One, we can initialize an array of integers called my bingo card, and it will contain 20 integers. So we can assume that the my bingo card k is crossed off by setting it to -1. If it is not, then it's between 0 to 90. And also it will keep another integer called num crossed off, NUMCROSSEDOFF, that counted the player wins when a number cross off reaches 20. Okay, and also the second possibility. Okay, this looks like workable because if we only keep the records of all those 20, if we counted whether the index of these 20 numbers is either has number -1 or regular number, normal number between 0 to 90, then we will know num cross off. Okay, so which means that after a brief examination, the first choice looks like it's feasible. The second one is we use a Boolean array recording the my bingo card, but right now it only contains Boolean. So we'll contain 91 Boolean values, of which 20 are true, and all the other values are false. That means okay. That means 20 true valued indexes of this my bingo card are those real card assigned to this specific user, player, not user. So all the other values are false because those are not the numbers that has been issued to this player. So that's if my bingo card k is true, then k is on the card and k is between 0 and 90. And number k is crossed over by changing the values of my bingo card k to false. So once a number has been crossed off because it has appeared as true, it will be set up to false. That means if we counted the number of true, then we know the number of cross off, because if we use 20 to minus the number of true values in this Boolean arrays, then we know the number of cross off. Okay, so after brief examination, we also know that the data structure 2 for the second choice is by using the combinations of the array of Boolean and also the integer. This choice is also feasible. Now let's take a look around of choice 3. It's trying to use an array list of integer called my bingo card again. The name all the same, but just different type. This time we use array list of integer, so which means it's an array list. It can be inserted, it can be deleted, it can have some flexible size. But for this part, the objects inside of this array list is of type integer and will contain 20 integers. But remember, this is not int integer, not the integer that we saw from the first choices, but it's a class intgr. So this is not primitive types. And the number is crossed off by removing it from the array list. But okay, so maybe we can consider that when we're trying to check the numbers, we have to extract the integer and trying to use the int values to return directly int values to compare, not some easy conditions that we can just do some comparison by the numbers that the caller has issued. So player wins is when my bingo.card size is equals to 0. So which means that this might also be feasible, but maybe the checking procedures of this array list might take some additional work, but which also has some advantage because we don't need additional number num-cross of type integer. Although it does not contain too much, but okay, maybe option 3 has a little bit dirty, maybe complicated setup, but it reduces the cost of additional index. That's okay. So let's see. Question is, what will be the choices, the good data structure for that? And after we did examination, obviously the answer is E. Because all 3 choices of data structures, we can implement such bingo game. Okay, now let's see question 33. The programmer decides to use an array list of type integer to store the numbers. Okay, that means the option 3. To store the numbers is to be called by the caller. Let's see the lines of code. Okay, this is a public class called caller. It has a private array list of type integer called myNumbers, and the constructor is as follows. First, it called a getList and return the list of numbers to myNumbers that has been assigned for this caller, and also it used the shuffle numbers. It calls the shuffle numbers. What does this getList and the shuffle numbers methods work? Yeah, what's the definition of both methods? For the getList is to return the numbers 0, 1, 2, 3 until 90 in order. And it is a private method. And it called getList. It will return an array list of type integer, and the implementation is not shown here. The second method, shuffle numbers, is also a private method. It returns nothing. It's a return void. But also it needs to shuffle the numbers of other cards that this caller has. Let's see. When the programmer tested the constructor of the caller class, she gets a null pointer exception, which could be the cause of this error. Okay, this might be a little bit complicated. We have to figure out each options by our very clear understanding of the division of the Java language. The choice A, let's see, the caller object in the driver class was not created with new. If that is true, then probably we don't have the choices to execute the constructor. So if we are trying to test the constructor, then the choice A, we don't have to consider. Okay, let's see. What about the choice B? The programmer forgot the return statement in a get list that returns the list of integers. If that is true, then the get list should return a list of integer, but what kind of null pointer exceptions that will happen? If a get list method has does not have a return statement, then actually even the program cannot be compiled. And if it does not return the exactly type, then it should be a null pointer exception. But this choice is just about the return statement. If it does not return, then actually this method actually won't be compiled first. So B should not be the cause of this error, because before this error happens, there might be some more erroneous fatal error happened before this error. So it won't be able to execute to this level. Let's see about choice C, D, and E. The declarations of my number is incorrect. It needed to be private array list of type integer of my numbers equals to null. If you remember our last page of the PowerPoint, the keynote, the difference between this and also the original assignment is that previously there's no assignment equal to null, but that's the first lines of declaration. So you can declare the array list initialized with a null, then add the real number of integers into the array list later on. So you can explicitly declare it as null or not. So apparently C won't be the cause of this error. Now let's take at the choice E. It mentions that the shuffle numbers algorithm went out of range, causing a null integer to be shuffled into the array list. What does that mean? That means it's trying to access some integer which actually does not exist inside of this array list. So if it does not exist an array list, how come such a null integer will be shuffled into the array list? So it does not make any sense because actually that shuffled into procedure should not exist. So if there is a null pointer exception, which definitely should not be mentioned at this step, because even before the shuffled into the array list, just by extracting the integers of this array list, there should be the null pointer exception. So it's not what choice E mentioned about shuffling to. So from our previous discussion, we know that answer D, the choice D, is the correct answer. That means in the getList method, an attempt was made to add integer to an array list that had not been created with new. Because if it has not been created with new, then which means that the object has not been constructed. And if an object of type integer has not been constructed, and you want to add it into the array list, then of course there is a null pointer exception. Because for array list of type integer, it assumes that all those integer object inside of this array list is not null. So if you want to insert a null object inside of this array list, it will throw out the null pointer exception. So that's it. Thanks for listening to this video, and if you're interested in joining our AP Computer Science classes, please contact us. Our website is limathtutor.weboy.com. limathtutor.weboy.com. Thank you, and see you next time. Bye.